What's up, everybody? You are listening to the Credentials Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Matt Sterenberg, and we've got another phenomenal episode for you today. Today, I'm talking with Marla Gunasegaram from the California State University Office of the Chancellor. She's the Systemwide Learning Technology Strategist, and we're talking about the very cool digital badging and digital credentialing initiatives that they have going on system-wide across all the campuses. So some really cool things to highlight. They're doing it for professional development for faculty and staff. They're figuring out ways to roll this out to students, and they also just got a cool NASH grant to do some interesting work with digital credentialing. So without further ado, let's get to our conversation with Marla. Here we go. All right, Marla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matt. I'm very excited to be here.
So we are recording this live from the One EdTech Digital Credentials Summit, and you just presented on some really interesting work that you're doing with the California State University system. You're in the Office of the Chancellor, and you were just talking about a number of your badging initiatives, and I thought, we've got to get you on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your work with the California State University system and a little bit more about your role.
So I work at the system level for the CSU, the California State University. We are a 23 university system. And my role is in academic technology services. And I get to play with and explore new technologies as they come through. So one of the big things that we're working on right now is we have this system-wide instance, LMS instance of Canvas. And because of that, we're able to provide professional education to our faculty, staff, and students at a system-wide level. So what this means is we have 460,000 students, 63,000 faculty and staff. And what this means now is we have a space for them to come and take professional education courses. And on top of that, we do have the Canvas credentials integration, so they can earn a digital credential once they take this professional development.
So we have a few different components of when we say like kind of system-wide digital badging. You have professional development for faculty and staff that are part of the CSU system. What do you have on the student side? What's the level of digital badging you have with your students today?
Okay, so we just launched a system-wide Academic Applications of AI for Students. This course was first developed for faculty and staff at one of our campuses, San Diego State University. And now the faculty there have modified it, and we're able to offer it system-wide to potentially 460,000 students. Now, of course, that many are not going to enroll and take this course, but they do have the opportunity to take this system-wide AI course, which is much needed right now, especially with AI and ethics. That is one piece. We do have another set of students that are in our system-wide instance, and those are our international students. And actually, that's one of the reasons why this system-wide instance took off is during the pandemic, we had international students around the world, and they were promised an education and a international education, but of course, everybody was locked down. And we had a system-wide instance of Canvas available. And so they contacted us and said, all of the students that are at the campuses, they all got moved to online, and now what can our students do? So we actually were able to put all of those students in this system-wide instance of Canvas.
So let's go back in time a little bit. How did this start? I mean, digital credentialing, digital badging, everyone's talking about it, but what made you actually take the leap and say, we want to do this system-wide instead of just pockets of excellence, where you have a Dominguez Hills doing something really interesting? Like, how did this become something that everybody's participating in? And I know that every state is set up a little bit differently, right? Like, not everybody has a system-wide LMS, or maybe other systems have more autonomy, and what problem were you trying to solve through kind of rolling this out at a broader system level?
Well, it just happened. There wasn't one big problem we were trying to solve. It was little problems. So we needed professional development to span across our 23 campuses. We have professional development happening at our 23 campuses, but they're all happening independently. And so I think the conversation started around how can we scale this, right? How can we have one campus who specializes in something, develop a course, but then share it with all the other campuses, right? So we ended up, I can't even remember, I wish I could remember the first course that came to us. And they said, we developed this course and people are asking for it. How can we do this? And we're like, well, we have this system-wide instance of Canvas. And so let's start in there. So we dropped the course into the system-wide instance. In the beginning, we were manually adding participants. So whether they were outside of the CSU or inside the CSU, it was a very manual process. And so once that became a little too tedious, we started exploring, well, how can we get our users in here? Well, they're already trusted users. They're already trusted faculty, staff, and students. And so our leadership reached out to our system-wide IT department and said, hey, can we implement single sign-on for this? We have it for so many other applications. And so we worked closely with our IT department, and they have very good relationships with the IT departments at the different campuses. So we spent some time, we had instructor consultants come in, we worked closely with them, and then our system-wide IT CIO came in and they reached out to the campuses and we said, this is what we want to do. And so we all worked together and a majority of the campuses seamlessly got moved in. And then some of our smaller campuses, it took a little bit more time, but we ended up getting them all the pieces in place so that whenever anybody signed in, they just selected their campus. It was seamless. And then they were in. The kind of interesting thing about it is, we say we have 460,000 students, but the system-wide instance of Canvas doesn't have 460,000 accounts in it. It's a just-in-time provisioning. So if there's a need, once they log in, their account gets created and then they're in forever. So that was sort of the fastest way we could start implementing something like this.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, and you highlighted this in your presentation today, was, I think the professional development aspect for staff and then faculty, for lack of a better term, is like a Trojan horse to get them to buy into the idea of digital credentialing. And you even have things planned on giving them a credential on digital credentialing, which is like such a meta thing to do. But is that intentional or is that just kind of a happy byproduct of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think it is a happy byproduct. I think this situation we are in, we were just meeting the needs at the time, right? Something comes up. How can we solve this problem? And so when we had the professional development in there and we decided, we were issuing badges. We were using the free badging platform. We were issuing badges, but we started to realize that the badges were incentivizing completion. And so then we ended up moving to the campus credentials, right? And to issue the verified badge, right? We wanted to put our name on it and verify that the Chancellor's office is issuing these badges, right? And we've taken the time to get the metadata in there for each of the badges that correlate to the learning objectives and the earning criteria for each of the courses. So that's how that started, and it took off because who doesn't want to get a badge, right? Who doesn't want to be recognized and share that across your professional development platforms? So that's how that started. So like we talked about earlier, we started with this professional development, right? We had the courses in the system-wide instance. We started issuing these verified credentials. And then we were awarded isn't the right word, selected to participate in the National Association of Higher Education Systems, Google Micro-Credential Community of Practice. So this is system-wide higher education across the United States. This where we were given a certain number of licenses to incorporate. There are the Google Career Certificates, and then there are 2 Google AI certificates, Google AI Essentials, and then Google Prompting Certificates. So we were given a number of licenses to explore how we could start incorporating industry-recognized credentials into faculty development, continuing education, and student academic programs. Because we have the system-wide instance, because we were already credentialing, we already had faculty coming in and taking courses, we came up with a pilot plan to teach faculty, first to show faculty that it's possible. So one of the courses we have is AI Tools for Teaching and Learning, and we issue our own micro-credential for that, or it's actually a digital badge that shows that you've completed the course. But now with access to these Google courses, we thought, why don't we try and embed one of those micro-credentials into this AI course? And by doing that, we're exposing faculty just to the idea that this can be done, because a lot of faculty don't realize that. And so not only do they come and take the course, they get the information that they're looking for, but then they also earn this Google course credential. And then the hope is they go back to their campus and they say, hey, I had this unique opportunity. So they can see that it's done, right? And so then the second part of this plan is to create courses teaching faculty, if they so wish, to do the same, to incorporate industry-recognized credentials into their curriculum.
So the NASH grant, that's kind of a big deal because it's early phases, but you've got some really interesting plans, some of which you highlighted. The thing that you highlighted in today's session that I think is really interesting is how do we expand this with the community college system and the UC system? So you've got the UCs, the CSUs, and the community college system. And I think California does a really good job of this, of just like trying to cooperate. They know their data on transfer. They know that their students are moving from CC to CSU to UC. So what is your vision? It's so early, okay? Caveat for everybody listening, so early. What's your vision in terms of your cooperation and collaboration with the community college system and the UC system?
Right. Yeah. So it is early. This is an idea that just popped into my head. And I said, we have access to these micro-credentials. And we spend so much time working on professional development for faculty and staff when the real benefit here is to get these into the hands of the students. So I thought, well, what if we gathered students from the community colleges, a handful, and then a handful from the CSU, and then a handful from the UC system? And what if we said, here, you have access to these courses, choose a course or a certification that you feel will align with what you're already studying, and take as many courses as you can if it's in a certification or just one course. And then really the plan here is just to talk to them afterwards and ask them the questions. And I really don't have anything solid just yet. Maybe it's a survey at the end. Maybe it's a panel where we get them together and we have them share with faculty and administration their experience and whether or not it's feasible for them to be able to take these alongside their academic curriculum. And maybe we're at a point where someone has graduated and done it and it has actually had an impact. Just to hear that feedback, I think it was just my way of how can we get the students into the conversation and get the certifications and the courses into their hands.
I think the cool thing about thinking about the connection between community colleges, university, and state systems, if they're all speaking the same credential language, I think that's hugely beneficial as we think about how do we get these burgeoning credentials, like how do we make sure that they can assist with transfer? How can we better think about pathways? And the more that there's connectivity between all the systems, number one, like these are new credentials and students don't necessarily understand them as well as people that live and breathe it every day. So like the more that it becomes just embedded, no matter where they go, I think there's so many benefits to that. It just becomes part of the infrastructure, no matter where they go, and the ability to think about what else you can do with it. I do want to highlight the continuing ed piece that you highlighted. Are these for credit or are these just adult learners looking to get some short-term certification or credentialing when you highlighted the continuing ed piece?
The continuing ed that we're offering through the Chancellor's office system-wide instance. Yeah, it's just for faculty who are interested.
Okay, it's just the PD type of thing.
Yes,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What barriers did you need to overcome as you were thinking about this system-wide? Like, because you have a system-wide instance of Canvas, you have like kind of the infrastructure in place to scale, but you still have independent universities. And if I know faculty and institutions well, they like their autonomy. How did you get them to buy into this?
So it really wasn't getting them to buy in. They just heard we were doing it. So we have a handful of core courses that we teach, quality teaching and learning courses that are hosted out of the Chancellor's office. And so we had a number of faculty, especially during the pandemic, who had to all of a sudden learn how to teach online. So they came and they took those courses. And then they went back and said, oh, this is interesting. I was in a class with faculty from 10 other campuses. And so I think people just started to realize I'm developing something that I want to share with everybody. And so they would come to us. They would just say, I heard you have this instance of Canvas that anybody can get into. Because they first go to their campus and say, I want to share this with everybody. And they say, well, it's locked down, right? We really can't. And they could open it up, but it just causes more problems. So we said, okay. I think we just started saying yes. When people came to us, we just started saying yes. Yes, we can do that.
So people were developing things at their campus and they saw that, other campuses were involved in professional development. It's almost like, well, I want to develop something for everybody, or I want people to access what I've developed here. So it's almost like a pride of ownership and wanting other people to have access to the things that you're doing, which I think is really cool. It's like one of those side benefits you don't really think about, but it's like, are we going to get better content from each of the campuses if they know that it could be used by everyone else? I think there's like some pride that goes into like, oh, this is going to be accessed by a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And they should be proud. I mean, these faculty, they're doing some amazing amazing things. I mean, we have so many different courses, the ones I didn't even hit on today. We have a faculty formative feedback project where you have a faculty partner and a faculty participant, and they work together to make their teaching better. I mean, you have someone giving you feedback, and now those courses are hosted at the Chancellor's office. If you go through the faculty formative feedback project, there's different levels. You get a level 1 badge or a level 2 badge. If you're a partner helping a participant, you get a partner badge saying, I'm a partner. I went through this program already. Now I want to help and give back. So now I get a partner badge. We actually do have a number of badges in our system as well that if you teach the course, you get a facilitator badge. If you're a leader, you've already been through the program or the course, and you come back and say, wow, this really benefited me. I want to come back and help more people. So you get that recognition as well. You get that badge to share.
So, and just so everybody knows, apparently some institutions are doing that, which I think is also kind of interesting, just an incentive to engage in it. So something to consider for your institution or your system if you're out there. So one of the big questions is what's embedded behind this credentials, right? In terms of skills, competencies, how does that get loaded in? And it's not the same for nearly every credential, but what's embedded behind this thing? I get this badge, but in digital credentialing ecosystems, we're like, let's not just do stickers, right? What does this communicate about the person that earns it? So kind of two questions. What is actually being listed out? And then how does that feed into it? How does that information get onto the credential that's being shared?
Right. Okay. So we do work closely with the faculty member who's created the course that's going to be issued in the system-wide instance. So they do, when they come to us and say, I want to issue a certificate or I want to issue a badge, we really have them sit down and think about what that means. And so we have them fill out a form that describes the badge. They have to fill out the earning criteria for the badge and any skills that the badge earner will be obtaining by receiving the badge. So we do get them to think about that before we just say, sure, here's a badge, right? It's really important that they think about, is it even worth badging, right? Not everything is worth badging. And does it make sense to do it? So yeah, that's really the way we have, addressed that. So the faculty are involved in that as well. It's not just us saying, oh, I think they're earning this or, So yeah, and I think that's a learning experience for them as well.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that we should cover? Or anything noteworthy that you just want to highlight?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say that I'm really excited. I'm excited for the future of digital credentialing. I'm excited for a future where faculty can collaborate. I'm excited for a future where we're saving time and money, right? We're doing things centrally, which has always been something that has been asked for. How can we do things more centrally? But also letting the campuses have their autonomy. I mean, it's really important. They do have different identities, right? And they're very proud of that. So for the people that are interested in coming and sharing, that we are providing them a space to do that is exciting.
Well, I think just the idea of getting faculty involved in this, like we talk about digital credentialing, and it's it's very learner focused, as it should be, right? But the idea that if you can get faculty and staff to be doing professional development, to be bought in, like that to me is a key idea because you're institutionalizing this idea. And if you sit in any session here at the One Ed Tech Digital Credentials Summit, the lines are blurred between learn and work, right? And so the more that work you're learning and the more that you're kind of doing creating the environment that you expect in the future, I think is a really cool thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Marla, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Matt.
So that is our episode. Thank you again to Marla for sharing the work of the California State University system. Very exciting stuff. Check out their work. I'll put a link in the description of this episode. Like and subscribe, and we'll talk to y'all real soon. Goodbye.